Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Marianne, and today I'm going to be making a tropical drinks card featuring this die set from Concord 9 Summer Camp. I'm going to be creating a watermelon and a pineapple themed drink just in time for the heat wave. These will be some refreshing drinks to take the edge off of the heat wave that a lot of people are experiencing right now. So with this die set comes these little stencils that will sort of add some detail to the different elements to turn them into a pineapple and into a watermelon. So I'm going to start by adding some green ink to the watermelon sort of cup shaped, starting in parsley cardstock, just applying a good amount of ink, just kind of haphazardly. It doesn't have to be perfect really, just trying to get a little bit of coloration, you know, how sort of the rind kind of looks, sort of different shades really. There's like a lighter shade and a darker shade. So what I'm doing is after I'm done with the parsley ink, I'm going to pick up this stencil and offset it slightly, and then I'm going to come back in with some clover ink, and not even fully the full like line strip, but just kind of on each edge to the right. Just add a little bit of dark color to sort of give it that, you know, that tone, 2 to 3 tone rind look of a watermelon. So when you pull it off, it kind of looks a little bit like a watermelon. And then I'm going to add the little shadow piece, so little darkened shadow piece, and this is going to be done in rainforest ink. So when you pull it off, it's going to look kind of like a little watermelon rind. I'm going to repeat that with the pineapple rind, using these little pineapple stencil, which kind of looks like lily pads to me. So I'm starting with some some buttercup ink on buttercup cardstock, and then I'm adding a little bit of Stardust cardstock too to sort of give it some variation, again trying to mimic what a real fruit would look like. And then I'm picking up this stencil as well and shifting it ever so slightly, you can barely even tell, but shifting it a little bit more to give that sort of shadow piece, and then repeating that with the same colors. Oh, I guess I use sunflower and Stardust instead of buttercup, but it is buttercup cardstock, I believe. And then adding the shadow stencil as well with the Stardust ink. I've also cut out a little umbrella. How can you have a tropical drink without a little umbrella? So I'm adding the stamping detail, which is some little flowers, to the umbrella. And this is Tone on Tone Aqua Sky ink and Aqua Sky cardstock. And I have one of my straws cut out of white cardstock, and I'm stamping it using a stamping block, just because it really wouldn't, the die cuts wouldn't stay in place in my sticky mat. They just kept getting up every time I opened my Misty door. So I just decided to eyeball it with my stamping blocks. So after I've stamped both those, I had one in watermelon and one in oceanside. I'm going to start gluing all of my pieces together. I'm going to spare you, since it's just gluing pieces together, I'm not going to show most of this. The next thing I'm going to do is sort of start to build up my card. I have a 4¼ by 5½ inch white card base and a sea glass card panel that will go on the front. So it's about 1/4 inch less on each side to give it, you know, a little fun sort of background. The sentiment I'm going to be using is Cheers to You, that comes with a stamp set. I have placed my elements as best as I can on top of the card base, and I'm going to remove them. So I kind of have my sentiment centered on that sea glass card panel, and I had all my pieces laid out so that I could get a sense of where I wanted to place the sentiment on the panel. And then I'm going to remove all the pieces, kind of line this up a little bit more, and then I'm going to stamp it. So I'm going to stamp that in rainforest ink, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a light touch, since it's a very thin text on the sentiment. I just want to make sure that it's sort of a very light touch, so it doesn't sploosh out everywhere when I press it down. And in addition to some of the other pieces like the straw and the umbrella, there's also this little sort of like dotted stamp that I'm going to do some tone on tone stamping with some sea glass ink just to give a little bit of interest in the background, so it's not quite so plain, and kind of sporadically stamping this with a stamping block. And a lot of that at the bottom will get covered with the drinks themselves. And so now I begin assembling the card. I'm going to put some foam tape down on the back of this panel just to give it a little bit of pop. So just applying a really good base of foam tape on the back there. And then I'm going to lift the backs of the tape off and use some liquid adhesive to give it a little bit of wiggle room before placing it onto my card base. So just want to make sure that I have some time to wiggle it into place before it sort of adheres and I end up tearing the paper if I need to adjust it. I'm going to add some foam squares to the back of my drinks, leaving a little bit of space at the top of each of them so I can start tucking my pieces in, as well as not putting some on that left-hand side of the pineapple so that there isn't extra foam tape there. And then I'm going to place them down at the same time so I can get the alignment just so. I'm then going to trim off the excess that's hanging over the edge. There's very little, but just going to trim that off. And then I'm going to start to fill in the pieces of my drink here, trying to get good balance on both sides of the cheers to you sentiment. I'm also trimming down some pieces like the straw, for example, just making sure that they sort of fit into the drinks. And here is our finished card. On one side we have our watermelon lime mint drink, and on the other side we have our pineapple drink. And I really love the way this card turned out. Very tropical, very festive, perfect for summer. Hopefully that you can enjoy a fruity beverage wherever you are during this extensive heat wave. Thanks for watching.